All right, it's getting a little messy. Let's see if we can sort this one out.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you at part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
So Friday nights are fun because we don't we record our programs for Friday nights on Thursday afternoons. We have a double production day on Thursday, so we don't produce the show on Fridays, but you see new ones each and every Friday most weeks, right? And it's good because I'm usually pretty punchy by the end of the week. We don't have a bunch of news headlines to bog us down. And we can have a thorough conversation with the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people that we bring on the show. Tonight's guest requires the whole show because I just don't know what's going on other than accusations of governor and paper conspiracy and all sorts of things. But there's no doubt that when we bring Giovanni Feroce in here, it's entertaining. So sit back, have yourself a beverage or tea if it's midnight, and let's see if we can figure this whole thing out. So welcome aboard on a Friday evening. What his state of mind is and my state of mind, I don't know. But we will have some, I'm sure we'll have some fun with this conversation. What was not fun for him, though, was this last round of news clips that had him infuriated. So here's one headline that started all of this. We learned that Giovanni allegedly, reportedly, according to the newspaper, could have been brought in. Now look, civil arrest warrants and criminal arrest warrants are usually handled very differently. I never had a vision of, the cuffs or the cuffs and that kind of thing, but certainly it was alarming to a lot of people who are following the race and thinking, hey, maybe this guy's got the right stuff. So what do I want to play here? This is Giovanni Feroce on the radio on WPRO. Telling us, by the way, that he learned of this warrant by reading the newspaper and admitting, yeah, he probably should have showed up in court.
And I'm not claiming for one moment that I shouldn't have been there yesterday. I should have when I read the item now that I know about it. But when something goes into receivership, which Benris did back in December, and there's piles of papers moving, very complex piles, I obviously just thought this was another item in the pile, like I would never know about it.
All right, so this is about the Benris company and the brand legality issues that he has had with that. Remember, he was a success story with Alex Anani and helped to drive that business to record numbers. So you could figure out this Benris thing, but it has been kind of a, the whole thing seems to me. Now, maybe it recovers. He'll let us know on that. But to some of the progress of the story, this headline reflected that the warrant was rescinded. And I'm sure that came, I think that came like a couple, 3 days after the, what hit the fan. So in the middle of that, welcome, good to see you again.
I'll see you too, Dan.
In the middle, did you pay the $8,000 bill that was, I guess, was the foundational problem for that particular vendor, T-shirt vendor that had a claim against your company where the judge may have issued warrants, permission if the plaintiff attorney for the vendor wanted to exercise it, blah, blah, blah. What happened? You settled the matter?
Well, it's a settlement that we came to an agreement on. But, the reality is, as you know, as a T-shirt vendor for a company, they named me. I had no indication that I would be the only party to this particular action. When I found out about it, we rectified it. But at no time, as I was told by the other side's attorney, was I in danger of ever being, picked up, because it's a process they have to, file themselves, meaning the attorney, and engage someone. So she was as shocked as I was that people were using that terminology. And but regardless, the only thing I have to do now is I have to file the claim to the receiver, as opposed to that company filing the claim directly to the receiver. Or in this case, probably both of us, since we've agreed to settle it a certain way.
Gotcha. So it seems to me it's a very, very tiny piece of what is a very large puzzle with your Benris workout program, right?
It's it's just one item. There's probably 30, 40 creditors in the process. I'm one of them. You know, I'm a big creditor to Benris, and so they will have to pay me as they go through the recovery process.
Because they is not you?
Correct. You know, it's a very complex thing. Our former general counsel basically hijacked the mark. He changed the name of the original company. It's now in a holding company, meaning the trademark. You know, the recovery process now is run by the receiver, but the receiver's trying to recover it from that attorney, Michael Sweeney, and his office, Duffy Sweeney, and everything else that'll happen to try and get, you know, monies back to the original company. And then in the order of creditors, legal fees, and then shareholders, we get paid out.
But, you know, I need to mention this. I've mentioned it every time I've had Gio on. I mean, I wouldn't call it a creditor. I was a recipient of payment from Benris with a company that I run for a project that I ran, and Benris fully paid all of its invoices previous to this bada bing. So I just want you to know that I've done business with Giovanni in the past, and it doesn't impact at all what I think about any of this, but full disclosure. And my experience was that you did pay me. So I mean, and so I think that people just know you got yourself into quite a business entanglement. I don't know. It's really interesting. Some of the folks calling on the radio in the midst of all of this, you know, is he getting arrested type of thing. Most folks, I think, have come to a conclusion, which I thought was interesting. And I don't know if you paid attention to it with all the furor and the phone calls to the radio shows and all the allegations that you're making, which we'll talk about in the next segment. But one of the things I'm learning is that I think the pulse of the electorate is that they're not going to hold you accountable as a candidate for the Benris complication, for lack of a better term.
I hope.
It was interesting, but I was getting those comments from people who are saying, look, he won, he lost. He's had victories, he's had defeats. You know, welcome to the real world. What they wonder about is whether or not you've got your gubernatorial campaign head screwed on straight with all the theatrics that feel like they're coming with the controversy. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand. I appreciate the comment on that. The
but that's
reality
something I've learned. Frankly, I think you've been out there enough with this thing. I always wondered, hey, could you run this campaign with a failed company, and or whatever you want to call it? And I think I have the answer. Well, yes.
Well, it's good. It's good to hear, because the reality is that I work every day, you know, doing what I do best, and believe it or not, I get hired to navigate crisis. That's my job.
How many crisis management navigations do you have in the pipeline as we speak?
4 that I, you know, am there to either grow a company,
start on their
start a
consulting,
company,
payroll, or whatever. Right now,
grow a company, start a company.
That's how you're paying the bills.
So yes, that's part of the process. You know, I don't want people attacking companies that I work with, so I'm always careful as to, you know, how I handle my personal, you know, input into them.
Are they local companies?
Oh, they're not. They're not.
Okay.
Some will be. Some have begun the process. You know, obviously I would love for them to work in Rhode Island and expand in Rhode Island. But my point is that they all come to me, very successful ideas or companies or other things that need attention, and they need to be operationally straightened out, or they need sales and distribution, or they need financing, or whatever they need, and you attack those and you put them in order. And so Benris, for me, sure, is it affecting me personally? Yes, but that for me, yes, but
right.
That for me, I've gotten to the point where it's lessons that I don't want to say I'm happy to have gone through, because they don't feel good, but I have to tell you, I'm the most experienced and educated candidate there can be, because I actually understand what the Department of Labor and Training looks like, what the Superior Court looks like, all of the things that people as a business go through, what it's like to penetrate the corporate veil and go after someone, why things are wrong.
You said something last week that I actually thought was brilliant. And I could relate to it, because I too am an entrepreneur who ran into a disaster. I lost my business. I've talked about this freely on both forums. owned a radio station, lost it in the worst economy. You think the 2007 economy is bad? Check the early 90s economy. It was brutal. You know, grew a business market share by 100% and revenue by about that much, but nobody paid anybody, and I went under. I tell people that I got my no-charge master's, although it was bankruptcy, and not a penny to my name when it was all done. I was 30 going on 60. I learned a lot from that. It builds character. So when you talk about what an entrepreneur deals with, and you know, staring up at the ceiling, wondering if you can make the payroll on any given day, or you know, reaping the benefits of a wonderful cash flow project. Most people who run for office have never experienced that.
And that's why you know, I often use Bruce Sunland as the example that of someone that I saw come in and handle a crisis. You can agree or disagree, you know, how he handled the credit unions, et cetera. But the reality is, here's a guy who, you know, was shot down in World War II and went back across into enemy territory. For him to walk into a DEPCO, you know, et cetera, it's going to be like, okay, what's next? You know, and he brings it over. The time that I spent in the Joint Operations Center, United States Central Command, both in the United States and in Qatar, in the main forward headquarters, to have the activity of war and see commanders just say, okay, next, weather, and someone's given a weather report. It builds you to understand you have crisis, you have to manage and get us through there. I believe I'm uniquely qualified for what's going on in Rhode Island, how to move us forward. But you know, I do it with a positive message. You know, on the personal front, listen, I'm not going to ever make light of any of that. I think people, the electorate, needs to understand who they're voting for. But I'm telling you, as confident as I can ever be, that will settle itself. That's what, frankly, allowed me to run, is when it turned into a legal matter. But I'm out of it.
The coverage of the legal matter and this civil warrant arrest headline, you know, had you losing your cookies. And we'll come back and talk about that when we return. Stay with us.
You know, I received something in late December, I believe it was December 27th, 2016, that said, hey, watch out. Gina's people are in with the media, and they're going to try and make sure you never get into this race. And I couldn't believe it. Like, I kind of just brushed it off, all right, whatever. And then on January 1st, this crazy article came out, which was so factually incorrect. The biggest, which was, that said I was in receivership, which I was not.
That was an early piece that Joe is referring to. By the way, the radio was last week, but there was the early piece the Providence Journal did on your overall coverage. Since then, there have been headlines like the Buffalo Bills are upset at you. We've got headlines like that, and whatever, just to give you some context. But more or less, you've asserted that these headlines and these arrest warrant type of stories that were run by the Journal are part of a conspiracy. That's a tough word. I mean, it seems like it's a little bit too dramatic. But part of a thing between the governor and the newspaper? Is that what you're asserting here?
What I asserted is fact. I received a text message in late December of 2016 that said Gina Raimondo's people don't want you in the race. They're going to coordinate with the media. All I know is it's been a relentless attack by a particular reporter. She goes one after the other, completely out of context. And it would be equivalent to me and you, and I don't know your background in chemistry, but I could tell you I could never write a paper on chemistry or start writing about chemistry. So just because someone's assigned to a courtroom is writing about business is just insanity. And she turns what are routine actions and what you're entitled to through the process, why you incorporate, why you have attorneys, why you go through processes, trying to make it look like, you know, I'm the worst. So you're
saying Amanda Milkovich, reporter of the Journal, doesn't know what she's writing about when it comes to covering the story? She has no clue
what she's writing about, and that's what I would emphasize. I've asked over and over again, at least 2, 3, 4 times. I'll do it again today on your show. You know, bring her here. Let's talk business. You know, she has no concept of what she's talking about.
Alan Rosenberg, the executive editor, obviously backed her up. He issued a statement when you brought her under a lot of this same kind of scrutiny. And I know Amanda professionally. Met her on a number of occasions. You have every right, Amanda, to come here and respond to Giovanni's assertion. The governor responded to the idea that she's working with the media, to the media the other day.
Giovanni Feroce went on with Tara Granahan this morning and made some sort of claim that the Pro-Joe and your campaign were coordinating to destroy his campaign. Do you have any response to that?
That is laughable and ridiculous.
Well, let me ask you something. How many reporters has she hired? Who's her right-hand person? Who in tandem, okay, are liking things together on Twitter seconds apart? Okay, so we can laugh it off, but it's not laughable. It's serious. And we as a state should be very concerned that the governor of our state is hiring media. At the same time, you know, they're literally writing stories about me and promoting her, all in the same kind of, you know, context. And even if you don't believe any of that, which I spent a year and a half ignoring, like I said, this thing's just going to go away on its own. I think the common person understands it clearly. And so we can sit here, you might not believe that. I don't care, I move forward, I pay attention. I will tell you that coming through the weekend, straight into last evening, I've had people who I absolutely don't know walk up to me and say, "What's your name?" And I look at them, I said, "Hi." They say, "No, what's your name?" I said, "Giovanni Feroce." Okay, "I know who you are, very distinctive looking. Hi." And she calls her daughter over and wants to meet me. And I have another guy right that I'm eating in his place saying, "Hi, I'm a big fan of yours." And I have another couple who I have no clue who they are, who they all say my name wrong, right? They're like, "You Mr. Feroce?" I said, "Yes, I am." It's like, "Hi, I'm Mildred, this is Bob, we're gonna support you," you know, and so forth. These are the people that are understanding that they just have somebody in me who is absolutely focused on making Rhode Island a new state.
All right, well,
and we're going to be able to do that, minus all of the chatter of this other stuff.
So, so I gave you a thorough answer opportunity there. I share one qualm, and I've editorialized it having nothing to do with you, that the pipeline of reporters to the State House is very alarming to me. It's too bad that the industry is such that the reporters are making more money, sometimes doubling their salaries, moving to state government. The taxpayers are subsidizing their next career moves.
That's crazy in and of itself.
Yeah, we have more press agents, and we have so many more press agents for government officials than we do have reporters covering the news out there right now. And so that economy of scale is completely out of whack. Whether there's some conspiring going on, you decide as a consumer of news as to whether that's happening or not. When we come back, there might be a few issues that we'll talk about here, because I think that's mostly what you should be concerned about, right? Stay with us.
That's why it provides some stability for this race. That's why I'm not weighing in on this, because, you know, Mr. Feroce's legal troubles are going to be up for the voters to decide if he decides to stay into that race. You've seen candidates, I'm not going to be one to say, oh, this candidate shouldn't run, that candidate shouldn't run. We've seen a lot of, historically in Rhode Island, a lot of characters be on the ballot and people supporting them, and that's going to be ultimately for the voters to decide.
Alan Fung, the alleged lead candidate on the Republican side. You're running for governor as a Republican. Patricia Morgan, by the way. Do we have a collage of candidates? Make sure Patricia would be the one just to the right of Yorke. Republican suggested that maybe, I'm paraphrasing of course, maybe you ought to get your life together a little bit more before you decide to continue to run for governor. But Fung, I think smartly, stayed above the fray. If the polling data is correct, he's here. We don't have polling data on you. All the polls that have been taken were prior to you actually becoming more formidable, and you know, so.
I think there's another one out that still doesn't include me, but I announced on May 20th. It's a Sunday at 2 o'clock at my headquarters on Post Road, and you know, those that aren't including that, again, I don't really care, but I will tell you, it's. I always think of the presidential race. When they used to take a poll, Hillary against Trump, and I'm like, well, what about Stein? You know, and no one would include it, and I'm like, well, that's an extra 4 points they're giving Hillary. that's not
Bottom
inclusive.
line, you think you need just
So
listen,
it's just interesting.
It's a low turnout Republican race. There'll be
Yes.
there'll be 35,000-ish voters in that race. You just got to target 18,000 and you win. I mean, anybody who can get 18,000 people to the polls wins.
That's what I believe.
Polling data doesn't matter.
We'll go for 20 or 30.
But
yes, I do think it's a mathematical equation. I think it's a get out the vote. And you have to go meet people. You have to meet people, you have to meet voters, but the independents are going to drive this thing. We're an open primary. That's another reason why polls, I don't understand how you can even begin the process of polling. It's an open primary. Independents come in your primary. What does it matter that you're asking X amount of Republicans? I mean, it's just a unique process.
I've always thought that was problematic, to be honest with you.
Just
If
a
you're
unique
trying to create
process.
a brand in a party in this state where you have open primaries and people are jumping
And
back and forth.
remember, I've been through this in 1994.
When you ran for lieutenant governor?
I ran for lieutenant governor. You know, I won a three-way primary, and you know, handily, killed in the general, but I won the Republican primary handily. But in the governor's race, you know, the clear favorite was Ron Makeley, and Link Almond won. So, you know, remember, it's a get out the vote situation. I'm just focused on making sure that happens. And I have to tell you, you know, I like being referred to as if I'm in third place because it's going to be a bigger surprise. And, you know, I won't say anything as far as Patricia's comment toward me, but I would tell you that I feel fully confident that my name recognition is way higher than Patricia's in the state of Rhode Island.
So here's the thing.
You know,
we talked a lot of issues last time you were here. Give me your pulse this week, in just 30 seconds. What is the conversation today on the issue? Name it.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's disposable income. People want to keep money in their pocket. So even if it's a fee at a beach, or if it's a fee that you're getting, or a fine that you're getting parking somewhere, or your ticket for going by a school too fast, or whatever it is, it's just an attack on disposable income. And people have had it. People want to keep their money. And so I believe just that I'm an everyday person. I want my money. I don't want people attacking my money. And that's what I think is a fact of life.
It's probably pretty. I mean, I get your point, but given all the Benner stuff, that's kind of ironic.
And you know what? That's beautiful because when I get my money, you're going to see it all. You're going to see it all. We'll have a nice show. We can stack it up.
Old Meatloaf song. You ever remember that? I want my money back.
But you know, people don't want to waste time. You're putting everybody in a line. We need to get them out of the line.
Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Final word.
Thank you.
When we come back. Stay with us. Alrighty, I actually have a minute more than I thought I had here, so we'll just hang out for a second. I will tell you that next week next week is Infrastructure Week, which I don't really know what that means, but we have an infrastructure bank here in this state, and what are you laughing about?
We do.
We have an infrastructure, Lexi's over there. I don't think we timed this show right now, but we'll figure this thing out. If I said we, I said if this thing cuts off in the middle, anyway. Infrastructure bank is kind of an interesting concept. I'm not exactly sure the title reflects exactly what they do, but we've had this conversation before, and we'll try to inform you so that you're really a smart wonk. In the meantime, make sure you stay tuned to WPRO weekdays 3 till 6 over the course of next week, because we'll continue to follow this governor's race. Will Giovanni Feroce remain even-keeled, or will he continue to bait not only the governor, but the Providence Journal and one specific reporter into having a duel here on this program? I don't think that's going to happen, but one more time, we will invite that reporter in so that she has the right to say, my reporting is sound. In the meantime, you have a great weekend. Hope you saw all of this. See ya.